Media.
Early on in the season, my sister and I were watching the show, and she was like, "Why did they give us a droid with a stutter?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know. Like, the guy's got an energy deficiency. What's he gonna do?"
You're listening to
Path of the Jedi
with your host, Ronnie Cruz.
All right, welcome to Path of the Jedi, the podcast where Star Wars meets personal development. My name is Ronnie Cruz, your host for this reflective adventure. That's right, reflective adventure. Because, now that we've wrapped up our exploration of Andor, the series, I have to be honest, I can't shake it, right? I like, even though we've spent the last 12 weeks talking about it, we've done an episode by episode examination and dive into the series. I feel like there's still so much more to talk about, right? Like, I can't shake the show. And it's a testament to its complexity. It's a testament to the depth of what they delivered, right? What the creators of this particular series gave us, that I can't stop thinking about it. And so we're definitely going to talk more about Andor today, because as I said, even though we spent 12 weeks on it, there's still so much to talk about. Reflective also because it's just that time of year, right? It's the holiday season, and no matter whatever way you feel about the holidays, it's naturally, I think, a reflective time for everyone. It definitely is for me. And then as we move into the new year, the symbolic renewal, we generally tend to reflect back on, the last 12 months and then reflect on the next 12 months. So, with Andor, and then coming into, finishing up Andor at the end of the year. And then on top of that, it's actually our 60th episode. That's right. 60 official regular season episodes. And then actually we have a handful of episodes that are not regular season, that are like special episodes and things like that. So we're actually closer to 70. I can't remember the exact number. I forgot to look before I started recording. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy that all these things are happening and converging at a time that's very naturally very reflective. I mean, I'm definitely reflective about Path of the Jedi, about our show here, and that we're wrapping our first official full year, calendar year, we're obviously older than that. Like, the show is a year and 3 months and change or something like that. And so it's crazy to think that we're this far into the journey and we're barely getting started. I feel like there's so much to talk about, and looking at, the 2023 season of what's coming for down the pipeline in Disney Plus. Lots to reflect on, definitely lots to reflect on. Also, I read a statistic earlier today, I think it was earlier today, maybe yesterday, that 95% of podcasts never make it to or past 50 episodes, right? So, there's so much to celebrate in that regards, where Path of the Jedi is officially in the top 5% of podcasts ever, because we're close to 70 episodes. So it's just lots to reflect on, lots to think about. And again, it's just naturally that time of year, right? Naturally that time of year. So we're going to dive into Andor more, because there are some things that I did not get to examine and discuss with you, during the episode by episode, because there is, again, so much that happens and so much that we can potentially dive into and talk about with each episode. Today's episode, we are going to focus on the amazing little droid, this little mech droid named B2-EMO, or affectionately called by the other characters in the show, B. Now, B was a character that I immediately latched onto, especially when we start seeing his interactions with the other characters. Early on in the season, my sister and I were watching the show, and she was like, "Why did they give us a droid with a stutter?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know. Like, the guy's got an energy deficiency. What's he gonna do?" But I think the real interesting thing about it is, not only did the creators give us a droid with a stutter, but they also chose for the other characters around him not to do anything about it, right? Like he's a droid, so you'd figure that they'd be able to just take him to the shop, get it repaired, or at the very least buy him new parts, or even refurbish parts, just so that like they address the deficiency. But they kept it that way, right? They kept it that way, and as a result, it ends up becoming an incredible character trait that gives us that much more information and depth and layer to B's character. I think it's absolute genius because it gives us so much information. Just this little quirk gives us so much information on B, and then we look at it in the larger context of his interactions and how the other characters interact with him, it's just absolutely brilliant in my opinion. So we're going to attack this in a couple of different ways. I want to talk about B. His interactions with the other characters. I want to also compare him to the other droids that we've seen in Star Wars as a whole. I love all the droids, and so it'll be fun to kind of compare him to the droids that we know and love so well. So I want to start by jumping to the end of this series. Well, not the series, but the end of the season finale, because it opens up on B's perspective. It's a POV shot from B's perspective, and he's home. Marva has passed away, and so the community members are helping kind of settle her estate, clean the house, prepare for the memorial. Clearly, B is having a very difficult time with this, right? Like he's kind of tucked away into his own shell. He's not dealing with it at all at this point in the story, and like he's been through a lot, right? Like, can you blame the guy? His Marva, who for all intents and purposes was his mother figure, has passed away. Clem, his father figure, passed away years ago, and his brother Cassian is no longer around. Like he's nowhere to be found. So B's world has been completely turned upside down, and now he's faced with the reality of radically changing everything about his life, right? Like there's so much uncertainty that he's experiencing right now, and like he's being forced into it, and he has to do it at a pace that he just can't handle at this moment, right? And so he's tucked away into his own shell, as I said. And then we see him we see the camera shake. So it gives us this perspective as if B is having the shivers or whatever. To me, I actually interpret that as B having and experiencing a panic attack, or at least the droid version of a panic attack. I actually I find it a little difficult to watch that scene, knowing what he's going through, and then feeling him have this kind of reaction. I had a visceral reaction to watching this. It's a very short clip, but I myself had a visceral reaction to it. I feel like it was a panic attack, and in my opinion, if it was meant to be a droid panic attack, it's like from what and I've watched a lot of stuff. I believe it's the single best on-screen depiction of what a panic attack feels like, right? Again, it's tough to even talk about and kind of relive in my imagination, because it's not a fun thing. It's not a fun thing, and so I already was very empathetic and sympathetic with B, and to see him go through this, it's tough. It's tough. I mean, your heart goes out for the guy, because he's very childlike, right? That's the thing about B. He has a very kind of childlike demeanor. He has this innocence about him that we don't really see, or haven't really seen in the past with droids. With droids in Star Wars. I mean, if you just compare them to, R2-D2 and C-3PO, our OGs, those two are they have very adult-like personalities, right? Whereas, again, B2, he's very childlike and he's very innocent. The only other droid I would say that has similar kind of childlike innocence would be BB-8. Right, another B. BB-8 is very childlike. He's very innocent. The difference being is that BB-8 is very self-reliant. Right, he's very confident, and he's out doing things. Right, like he can drive a freaking Imperial Walker. Right, like we saw in The Last Jedi. B2, not so much. Not so much. We see that he's actually very dependent. He needs guidance. He needs instruction. And most of all, it seems to be that he needs company, right? He needs the presence of his family. And now that family is gone, right? His mother, Marva, is gone. Clem has died years ago. And his brother, Cassian, who knows where Cassian is, right? B has no idea. And so, again, he's thrust into this unknown. He's thrust into all this uncertainty. And so it's like watching a child. It's like watching this helpless child in this situation that he has no control over. And he's having to cope and deal with it. And the way he copes and deal with it is by tucking his head in, and then he has a full-on panic attack. Again, your heart kind of breaks for him. Your heart kind of breaks for him. This takes us, of course, to the next part of the conversation then, in the examination of how the other characters interact with him, right? And they very much do kind of add to this narrative of B being very childlike and innocent, right? And needing guidance and always needing company. You see when Marva speaks to him, he speaks to him as if he were a child, right? You see the members of the community, especially in this episode, in the season finale, as they interact with him and talk to him. They kind of talk to him as if he were a child, right? Like, B, you have to understand, we got to take care of this. Marva's no longer here. You got to come with me to stay at my apartment. And like he just keeps pleading with him. Okay, can I just stay here? Can you stay with me? You know what I mean? You even see Cassian. When Cassian talks to him, you see him talking to him definitely as a child, like any individual would talk to a sibling, right? A sibling that might be very childlike and innocent. You know what I mean? And so again, this adds that kind of layer and depth to who B is. We get to this point at the end of this season in the series where he's now this kind of, he's this child that's lost in the wilderness. If we take this lens of B having this childlike innocence and the human characters around him, how they interact with him, and we use that lens to look back at the rest of the season, the picture that I see, or at least the parallel that I can draw, the only parallel that I can draw with life here on Earth is neurodivergence, right? Again, we have this droid who is, who has this childlike innocence, and he has a very strong dependence on and attachment to his humans, his family, and as an extension, the community around him. Now, of course, they've done an amazing job taking care of him. The family, the community have done an amazing job caring for him. The most heartbreaking part of all of this for me is knowing that he will eventually lose all of that, right? Regardless of the circumstance or the situation, at one point or another, all the humans in B's life will eventually pass, leaving him, again, a child lost in the wilderness. Now, I know that sounds like kind of a bummer. I get it. Yes, it is a little bit, but it's an important conversation to have. Impermanence and loss is something that we all, if we haven't yet, have to face. I think it's a topic that especially in the last 2 years, has been kind of shoved to the forefront of conversations. And the more kind of healthy conversations we have of it, I think the better we can process that loss when it crosses our path. Impermanence is woven into the very fabric of Star Wars. I mean, we lost Obi-Wan in the first movie, for crying out loud. And then, of course, you have the tenet of non-attachment in the Jedi code. And, it's not so much that, Jedi can't fall in love and Jedi can't get married. It's none of that. I think it's really more to give us to help give us a deeper understanding that all things, including ourselves, will eventually pass. And the beauty that is B2 is not only that he serves as a reminder of the inevitability of loss that we're all going to experience, but also a reminder, because he's so empathetic and sympathetic, he serves as a reminder to have compassion for that experience. Yes, at one point or another, we all will be children lost in the wilderness. But the universality of that experience binds us together like the tribes of children on Canary, so that we can live through that wilderness together. All right, well, that's going to do it for today's episode. What do you think? What do you think? I know it's a little bit of a heavier topic than we generally dive into. However, it's important, right? It's important. It's something that we all have to face at some point or another if we haven't already. And it's been on the forefront of a lot of conversations. Again, the last 2 years have been crazy, let alone like the last couple of weeks, right? Like, with news of individuals recently passing and how they passed. It's definitely on the forefront of a lot of our minds. So yeah, I wanted to have this conversation. I actually didn't mean to have this conversation, but this is what came out. This is what was inspired by this amazing little droid called B2-EMO. And again, that's the brilliance of the writing, right? That's the brilliance of the creative team. It may not be what they intended or what they meant for this character, but if it was so brilliantly written that it inspires this kind of conversation, then job well done, man. Job well done. That is the mark of really, really great art. So yeah, I wanted to have this conversation with you because, again, it's something that we're all going to experience, and really, I think the biggest message that I wanted to leave is exactly that. It is universal. We may not all know what each other is going through when it comes to loss, or how we each process things. I can never know what you're going through or what you're experiencing, but I can at the very least understand, because again, it is universal. Impermanence is something that we all will or already have faced. And so, if we can face it together, if I can help, ease your burden of loss, then I'm willing to do that. And as a community, then, yeah, we can be like the children of Canary, where we can be in the wilderness together, right? We don't have to face the scary wilderness alone. We can face it together. So that's really where I wanted to have this conversation. Whether or not you have any reflections, if you do, I'd appreciate it. If you want to share this episode, if you think that'll help, especially that it's this time of year, and this time of year with the holiday season, it evokes a lot of emotions. It brings up a lot of emotions in people, good and bad. And so, again, if we can, share the burden with each other, because we are in the wilderness together, then all the better, right? All the better. And again, all inspired by a little droid named B2-EMO. Okay, so that's that. Well, you know how to get in touch with me with socials. POTJ Podcast on both Facebook and Twitter, and on Instagram I am now the Ronnie Cruz, one word, the Ronnie Cruz. I'm also that on TikTok as well. I actually am more active on Instagram and TikTok than I am on Twitter and Facebook. So if you want to reach out, you can get in touch with me there, and I'll be more responsive on those platforms. However, any way you want to get in touch with me, if you want to do email, you can email me as well. It's info@pathofthejedi.com. And now it's time for this week's shout out. In light of the recent passing of Stephen Twitch Boss, I wanted to dedicate this week's shout out to anybody out there listening who might be struggling right now, right? If you're having a hard time, or if you're feeling a certain way about the holidays, and I get it, right? The holidays can be very difficult for a lot of people. And so if that's you, if you're going through some stuff right now, I want you to know that you are not alone. And whatever burden it is that you're carrying, you don't have to carry it alone. Whatever difficulty or obstacle that you might be facing, you don't have to face it alone. There are people out here that want to help you carry that burden, that want to help you face whatever it is that you're facing and get through whatever it is that you're going through. I'm going to leave some links and resources in the show notes of this episode, and I encourage you to use those resources and reach out to somebody. Reach out to these professionals that are out here and that want to help you. Heck, if you want to send me an email, info@pathofthejedi.com, and we can have a conversation. I'll reply back. Honestly, between you and me, I don't get a lot of emails. So I'd be happy to get an email, and again, to help lighten your load just a little bit. If I can do that, then my work will have been accomplished, and we can keep having a conversation. Now, of course, I'm not a professional, and if you need a professional, again, I encourage you to check the resources and reach out to the individuals that I'll leave in the show notes of this episode. Because the main thing is, again, you're not alone. Yes, it can feel like you're alone in this crazy, crazy wilderness, but we're all in this together. And whatever it is that you happen to be facing, I may not necessarily know, but I can understand, right? And these individuals that are in these resources, they can understand as well. So don't go through it alone. You know what I mean? Don't be alone if you don't want to be alone. Seek help if you need help. If you're having a hard time right now, if you're struggling, I want you to know that I hear you and that we are here for you. So again, use the resources that I'll leave in the show notes of this episode and reach out. And to the wife and children that Stephen Twitch Boss has left behind, I ask that let us all send them as much light and life as we can as they go through this difficult time facing this loss, especially during a season that's supposed to be joyous and happy. And actually, let's do that for anybody who might have experienced loss recently, whether it's last week or the last 2 years or the last 10 years. The world could definitely use more light and life. So let's be agents of the Force. Let's be Jedi and share and spread that light and life. All right, well, that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much for continuing to tune in. This was an important episode to me, and I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate you taking the time to allow me to hold space. So, it is the last episode of the season. I can't guarantee. I was going to say I'll give you another episode, but it's crazy busy for me right now. I would like to, I would hope to, and I will try to, but I'm not going to guarantee that you'll get another episode before the year ends. So if you don't see anything new from me in the next week, understand that I'm taking a break. I'm taking a much needed break through the holiday, and I'll be back in either 3 to 4 weeks. We'll see. Maybe sooner, maybe later. I don't have an exact date. I haven't looked at the calendar. But again, the main thing is I appreciate you allowing me to hold space. This year has been an amazing ride. I look forward to continuing this journey with you next year. And I definitely have some things planned for the show and some more expanded resources for you, my amazing Jedi friends, to help you on your journeys, wherever those journeys may take you. So that's going to do it for this week's episode. If I don't hear from you, or if you don't hear from me for the rest of the year, thank you so much for joining us. This has been an absolute pleasure for me. Until next time, be well, be safe, and may the Force be with you.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company nor Lucasfilm Limited. and is intended for entertainment, educational, and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names and sounds and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is intellectual property of Path of the Jedi unless otherwise indicated.